Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. I'm doing another early morning review today, so let's get into it. So last night I was able to catch the newest M. Night Shyamalan movie, Trap. Trap? I keep wanting to call it Trapped, but no, it's just called Trap. So I have said in other reviews before that I am not, the biggest M. Night fan. He has a couple of films here and there that I enjoy, but overall his style of storytelling just doesn't do much for me. I know he has his fans out there, so I will say if you are a fan of his work, then you might enjoy this more than I did. That is not to say that I was not entertained by this movie. Like, I actually had a lot of fun watching it. My friend that I saw it with, we were both laughing throughout the whole thing. And the thing is that it's not like it's unintentional comedy, right? Like, I feel like a lot of the comedy is very intentional on Shyamalan's part. Just the way that it's shot, right? The way that the actors are kind of giving this slightly over-the-top performance. Like, the tone definitely comes across as it's supposed to be comedic. But overall, it was fun. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I thought it was very entertaining, but that's also not to say that this is a good movie. This story, even for a Shyamalan movie, is a hot mess. It makes no damn sense. And yes, you could make the argument of oh, well, it's trying to be comedic. He's not taking this too seriously, but you know what? We don't excuse bad storytelling here. And Shyamalan can make a really good movie when he wants to. Trap is just not one of them. But again, entertaining and hilarious, both intentionally and unintentionally. So if you've seen the trailers for this movie, then you know that it primarily follows Josh Hartnett's character, who is this serial killer living a double life. He has a family, he has the whole suburban home, and being a good father, he takes his daughter to see this pop star called Lady Raven that his daughter is obsessed with. They go to the concert together, and while he's there, he then finds out that the entire concert is actually one big trap to catch this serial killer, right? The FBI is on the scene. They know that the serial killer, his name is the Butcher, is going to be at this concert and they're trying to find him, right? And so a lot of the film is Josh Hartnett trying to figure out how he can get out of this situation without being caught. So already the premise is a little outlandish. Why would the FBI need to go to all of this work of creating this whole concert experience just to find this guy? You think there'd be easier ways to catch him, but fine, whatever. The premise is interesting and it's new, and yes, it's very much tapping into the current cultural zeitgeist of these big concert events that we're seeing, primarily with big pop stars like the Taylor Swifts or the Beyoncés. My biggest praise of this movie has to go to Josh Hartnett's performance, right? He is just amazing. He's definitely doing the best with what Shyamalan is giving him. And again, he's trying to play this serial killer character that goes out of his way to be very nice and polite in everyday society so that no one suspects him of going around and killing people. So he's just kind of walking around and playing this very goofy, again, very over the top type character. There's a scene where his daughter is being sad because people are bullying her at school, and he's just coming in as the dad and being well, honey, I understand that that's really hard for you, and I know that things have been tough for you at school, but we also need to understand that the other girls, they have feelings too, and we all just need to learn to get along and live happily together and coexist. It's very over the top and cheesy like that, and what's hilarious about it is that it genuinely works on other people. There's a scene where he's buying his daughter a concert t-shirt, and she wants one shirt, but there's only one left in the size that she needs, and there's another girl next to her that's oh, I want that same shirt and that same size, right? And it turns into a whole fight between these two of I was here first, and he just comes in and is honey, let this other girl have the shirt. She really wants it. I'll find you another one. And then the guy that's working the merchandise booth is just oh my God, man, you're so nice. You're such a great father. You know what? I'm going to go out of my way and find you another shirt. And again, the running joke here is kind of everyone that Josh Hartnett runs into, especially the employees at the concert, just keep telling him wow, man, you're just the nicest guy. People just aren't nice like you are anymore these days. And maybe that was meant to be kind of a humorous commentary on again, the kind of current state of our culture and how people just seem to go out of their way to be jerks these days. So all of that was very comical, and again, Josh Hartnett is doing a really great job with this material, and he does a really good job of switching too between the kind of goofy father figure to stone cold serial killer. So I liked that. I liked that we were able to see both sides to his character, and it's also great just to see him in a leading role in a movie. Again, I've always been a big Josh Hartnett fan. He was always one one of my crushes as a kid in the late 90s and early 2000s. Yes, sure, The Faculty, yes, Pearl Harbor, fine, those movies are great. But where he really captured my heart the first time was Halloween H2O. Yes, even with that haircut. So he's definitely the biggest draw of this movie. Now, where I get into my critique of the film, if you've heard anything about this movie just like beyond the promotional material, then you may know that the main pop star of this film, again, her name is Lady Raven. I'm not really sure why, because she doesn't dress like a raven, nor does any of her like aesthetic evoke a raven. Anyway, Lady Raven is played by one of M. Night Shyamalan's daughters, who, from my understanding, does have a musical background and I believe is trained in like classical music. Like I think she's a trained piano player. I know that Shyamalan and her came up with this premise together, and the idea was that she would make music, she would make an entire album that he would then base this film off of.
Could you write an album for a movie? And we were, a big inspiration was Purple Rain.
So she is the main pop star here. She is singing. A lot of the music that we hear in this film is hers, which I'm not entirely against. Like, again, Hollywood nepotism is certainly nothing new. I think the problem that I had here is that you have several moments where the film is just like stopping, right? Like all the action in the narrative is stopping for these scenes of her coming on stage and performing, and you're listening to the music, and at times it just kind of feels like one giant music video for his daughter.
I wanted the album, which will come out with the movie on August 2nd.
And again, I'm not entirely surprised. Like that's kind of what I was expecting going into the movie, knowing that, she was doing the music for this film. But yeah, it definitely does stall the film at parts, right? I feel like there's a lot of like going and stopping. You have Josh Hartnett and he's just kind of like walking around the arena and like trying to figure out, what does the FBI know? Like, what are they doing? And then he'll come back and then it's like, okay, music break, and then Josh Hartnett will leave again and again trying to find more clues, and then it's like, okay, break, music, and then he'll go out again. So just a lot of this like stopping and starting that kind of makes the film, it doesn't have a good flow to it, right? It doesn't feel like the film is flowing like naturally. And I think that would have been solved had, you just have the music and the concert going on in the background and it wasn't like one of the main focuses of the first act of the film. But it definitely does kind of feel like, Shyamalan took his daughters to go see the Eras tour, and then his one daughter was like, I want to do that too. And he was like, okay, and that's how we have Trap. And the music, like, it had a very, early 2000s feel to it. Like, it didn't even sound like modern pop music. For those of you that were around in the early 2000s, do you remember when you had all those like Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera like knockoffs kind of coming onto the scene, and they had these very like generic pop singles? That's like what the music in this film sounds like. And yes, there are definitely like certain costumes and visual styles to her performance that do feel very similar to something that Taylor Swift has on her tour. I mean, I'm just guessing. It's not like I spend, my weekends watching live streams of the concert or anything. So anyway, and the other problem with this movie is that it's very long. It feels long, an hour and 40 minutes. And for a premise like this, I don't think you need it to be that long. I was sitting there and, watching Josh Hartnett's character, again, kind of going in and out of this arena, of this show to try to like figure out what the FBI is doing. And I was like, okay, if this was like a solid 90 minutes, then this might be okay. And I looked at my phone and I saw that we were only like, 45 minutes into the movie. And I was like, okay, this whole like gimmick with the concert thing, this is getting old fast. Starting to get bored. Like, Shyamalan needs to bring in like something new here. Like, I'm hoping we're gonna have something new in the third act. That's where his famous Shyamalan twist is gonna come in. So I will say, like, he does take the film in a different direction and does do something different. He does get us out of this like arena concert location. Unfortunately, like, where he takes the film is just not where I wanted it to go, like, at all. And here's the thing, it's like, okay, you're putting your daughter on stage, right? You're using this film as a way to help her launch her music career. Okay, fine, whatever. I can deal with that. What I cannot deal with is the fact that this pop star, this Lady Raven character, then becomes a main protagonist by the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, right? And then it becomes like a cat and mouse game, not between Josh Hartnett and the FBI, but between her and Josh Hartnett. There's a lot of scenes of her with Josh Hartnett where she's supposed to be, looking scared. She's supposed to be angry. There's like one point where she's trying to like do some sort of weird like psychological manipulation on him to try to get him to turn himself in. And maybe this would have worked if, she was a better actress. Sorry. And Shyamalan definitely goes out of his way to make her look like a hero in this movie. Again, like, this is why the film feels like such a slog to get through at times, is because we're having to stop like the main action and everything with Josh Hartnett's character and with his family to focus on this pop star and her trying to like play this very like heroic role. And again, it just feels like off. Like, it just feels unnatural because you're not really sure like what her motivation is to be taking on this role. Like, you are a very well-known pop star. Like, shouldn't you be just in your like private jet, like flying around to your concerts and just being fabulous? Like, what are the stakes here? Like, what stakes do you have in catching this serial killer? And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's a thing where they're going to reveal that Josh Hartnett's character actually killed someone that she was close with, or something like that. Just something to kind of give her a little bit motivation. But the film doesn't do that. Her whole stuff just felt really out of place in this movie. And I know that M. Night is trying to be a good dad. I know he's trying to support his daughters, right? You have this film, and then, you have his other daughter that he helped produce her feature film earlier this summer, right? The Watchers. I was not crazy about that movie either. But I know he's trying to be a good dad. He's trying to be supportive. So, like, I can't fault him for that. But yeah, I just don't quite think that, like, the performance or the music here is really having the effect that he thinks it is or that he wants it to. So all the stuff with the pop star is annoying, and there are several things about this narrative that just don't make any sense at all. Like I was just saying, why would you have a big pop star that is so invested in catching the serial killer? Why would her or her team agree to let the FBI come in and like use this concert as a way to like try to find this guy? That feels like it could be bad PR. I don't know. And again, it's like, why does the FBI even need to create this whole like scenario at this concert? Like, isn't there an easier way to catch this guy? I mean, they make a point of saying like, oh, there's over like 30,000 people at this concert. That seems like a safety hazard. That seems like a fire hazard. There's a lot of like hazards going on. You also have this like older woman who's the head of the FBI. She's like a serial killer profiler, right? So she's like kind of the one coming in and like telling the other agents like, okay, this is the kind of guy that you're looking for. And then all the agents like go out to the concert and like try to find guys that look similar to who the profiler said they're supposed to be looking for. So you're just getting a lot of like moments where like the FBI is pulling like random dads out of the concert and interrogating them. Like, it feels like a very like sloppy operation. Also, you have like the FBI profiler who's like talking to the pop star and like telling her about like the serial killer, and it's like, why would that be happening? It's like Josh Hartnett has such easy access to Lady Raven. He'll just like go up to her and like start talking to her. If she is supposed to be this like big like pop star, like up and coming pop star, like, wouldn't she have more handlers? Wouldn't she have like, again, her publicist and like more security around her? Like, it feels a little unrealistic that he has such like easy access to her and nobody finds that kind of weird. Again, the whole thing with like the people that are working at the venue, right? Like the whole like merchandise area. Like, again, he just goes up to like one of the guys working at one of the merchandise booths, and the guy working at the booth is like, oh yeah, I meant to get you that t-shirt. I have to go like out back and get a new box. And Josh Hartnett is like, oh, well, can I join you? And he's like, yeah, okay. And then just proceeds to tell Josh Hartnett like all of these things about the concert and like what the FBI is doing and the whole like setup. And yeah, it just felt like so unrealistic. And yes, I know that was kind of part of the comedy, but just felt like almost too easy. Like, is that all it takes? I can just like go to the Eras Tour and become friendly with one of the workers at the merchandise booth, and then I'll be able to go like backstage. Not that that would like happen, because it's not like I'm actually going to the Eras Tour, because they don't have enough money to like pay $3,000 for tickets in my city. I'm not bitter about it. So none of this makes sense, but the thing that actually took me out of the movie the most, when it's revealed that the way that the FBI knows that Josh Hartnett's character is going to be at this concert, because they found part of a paper receipt, right? The receipt that he got for purchasing the tickets. They found the receipt at one of his, like secret hideaway homes where he does his like killings. I was like, a paper receipt? Like, where are you buying these tickets? Like, aren't you getting that shit on Ticketmaster? Like, don't they just like send you like a QR code? Yes, I know that some venues still require you to like print out like barcodes and stuff, but even then I was just like, yeah, no, I'm not buying it. That was the moment where I was like completely taken out of the film, and I was like, this isn't real. There is a twist to this movie, sort of. I don't know if I would really like call it like a twist, maybe more of just kind of a realization.
Expect one of these traditional M. Night Shyamalan twists at the end?
You know, I don't really think of it like that.
I don't know, I feel like, you know, the past few Shyamalan movies, like the twists have been a little bit disappointing, if I'm being honest. It felt like the film was building up to something bigger, just again, because of how unnatural like things in the first act were, right? Again, with this very like over the top behavior of, yes, Josh Hartnett's character, but you also see it in other characters as well. There was kind of like these unnatural like camera angles where it's like characters are looking like straight into the camera and they're just like talking and they're like, yeah man, did you know that there's a serial killer out here and the FBI are here and they're here and they're gonna create a trap for him and they're gonna try to get him, right? Like it's this kind of like weird, like just like straight on like kind of unnatural way of like filming, like almost breaking the fourth wall, but not really. So because there was so much of it that just felt unnatural and very unrealistic, I was like, okay, it feels like he's going to be building up to something, right? There is going to be like some sort of like weird twist here that's going to explain all of this like kind of weirdness. And no, you don't really get that. If anything, the twist that does happen or the information that is revealed actually very much like negates everything that is set up in the first act. Once you figure out what's really going on here, then it's like, well, okay, this whole like concert trap thing makes even less sense. Why was any of this happening to begin with? I'm not going to say what the twist is, but when it is revealed, it opens up a ton of like plot holes. It was just sloppy writing on Shyamalan's part, let's be honest here. And I know that not everyone likes his twists and his other movies, but for something like this, I was really kind of like, okay, give me something like outlandish like what we have in The Village. Like I feel like the twist in The Village would make a lot more sense for what's happening here in this movie. Josh Hartnett does take his shirt off for the majority of like this reveal of the twist, and I will say that does elevate the third act significantly. I felt like there was like potential here for him to make like an interesting commentary on, again, this current like, you know, event, like concert trends that we're seeing. There were definitely parts of this movie that felt like a parasocial like fantasy in some respects, in that it's like you have Josh Hartnett and he has this daughter. The daughter is like obsessed with this pop star and he's working behind the scenes to create this scenario where she can go like backstage and like meet this pop star. He manipulates certain circumstances where she is even able to like get on stage at one point. During that scene, Shyamalan himself does have a cameo, which is also like very hilarious, but he's creating this scenario where she has this like big dream coming true of like she gets to meet this pop star and then the pop star's taking her backstage and then she's like going to her house. So it has that kind of like fantasy element of it that's also being juxtaposed with Josh Hartnett's character as like, you know, this infamous serial killer that people are following. And so I was like, okay, maybe he's trying to make like a commentary about like fandom and then also our culture's obsession with like serial killers and true crime. Maybe he's trying to say that it's like two sides of the same coin and how these things are also very much related to like, you know, consumerism as well. But he doesn't really go anywhere with it. He's not really like saying much about anything in this movie. It's just pretty goofy overall. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Trap. As I said, I did find it entertaining. Like it is funny. If you're interested in seeing it, know what kind of movie it is going into it. If you are not a fan of Shyamalan's work, this is not a film that is going to convince you otherwise. And I would also say, like, I don't think this is one that you need to see in a movie theater. There's really nothing that special with the visuals going on here that I would be like, yes, you definitely need to go see this in a theater setting. So this is one where I would definitely say, like, save your money and wait for it to come on streaming. Did you see Trap this weekend? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.